I think we've gone live. So, hello everyone. Good evening and welcome to another session of hashtag Mentor Hours conducted by Lawyered. Today's topic is keeping money clean, money laundering in India, and we're very glad to welcome back Ms. Soumya Singh, advocate
Always
for.
a pleasure. Thank you.
All, thank you for joining us once again, ma'am.
Thank you.
Soumya Singh, ma'am, is an advocate for avant-garde communications. Ma'am has been a practicing advocate since 2014, enrolled in the Bar Council of Delhi. Ma'am is an expert in corporate affairs as well as financial crimes, but her other practice areas include civil and corporate litigation, employment labor laws, insolvency and bankruptcy laws, and international commercial and contract disputes. Ma'am, thank you very much for joining us again.
My pleasure.
Um,
Thank you so much, Samir.
Before we begin, a little bit of, I always say this at the beginning of every webinar, some information for our audience. Please keep yourselves on mute throughout the webinar. If you have questions, I would be happy to entertain them. Just send that into the chat box. But please keep yourselves on mute. The only person we'd like to hear is Soumya Singh, ma'am. So thank you very much, ma'am. Please go ahead.
So, I think we've been hearing about PMLA and ED for quite some time now, more so because one particular news making rounds and rounds and rounds of social media, mainstream media, all the journalists round the corner, and still not able to, realize the fact that what is up with the drama, what is up with the fuzz, and why can't we just stop hovering around and understand what is the crux of the matter is. I'm very sure you must have, guessed it right. This is about the Sushant Singh Rajput case, and more so, it was related to NCB,
Narcotics.
CBI, Mumbai police. But then for a very few days, we could also hear ED coming into picture. And when ED comes into picture, nonetheless, there is more so, a fuss, a hush-hush thing about it as to whether it leads to a high-profile money laundering cases. What's the matter? Where is the crux? Where does the proceeds of crime, leading us to? And ultimately came down to nothing but, people from Bollywood and politics and mixed of both, bashing each other. And the trail of the case, going haywire as usual. More so it has happened in, say about 3.5 months. Does usually happens over decades when it comes to prosecution in India. Coming back to what it has derived our attention towards is how, drugs, NCB, psychotropic elements, corruption, licensing, illicit affairs, illicit economic affairs, leading us to nothing but one thing in common, that is prevent money laundering. And when prevention of money laundering comes into picture, which was into existence back in 2002, more so we realize that there are big names like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, um, several celebrities, Mr. Chavan, recently the Videocon ICICI famous case, the coaches were into picture. And if you see, there has been a trend where, off late, all these investigating authorities have recently have got a lot of work, and they're all, geared up and burdened with files, news, matters. But then ultimately, if we, sum it up, we see that not much of a prosecution is taking place under PMLA and the schedule offenses. What I meant to say here is, हम बहुत बार सुनते हैं कि आज ईडी ने इनकी वीरभद्र सिंह के घर रेड करी, आज यहाँ पर सीजर हुआ, आज यहाँ पर रेड हुई, आज 12 घंटे तक इन्वेस्टिगेशन चलता रहा. नीरा राडिया being one of the famous names coming into picture, or for that matter PMLA के under 4G matter, CWG matter, so many things. If you see that the tunes of monies as it goes high, PMLA by default comes into picture. And when you see big names like that, primarily politicians, associates, aides, Haji Mastani for that matter, it grows up like a mushroom and then it just, vanishes. Because when you see the conviction rate, it's not even 3%. more so for over 2 decades, this particular act coming into picture, we do not get to see whether a person actually got deprived of the attached property by the adjudicating authority under PMLA, whether the person was sent behind the bars, or for that matter, recently, whether the person was successfully extradited from the countries outside. Do we get to see Nirav Modi or Vijay Mallya in near future? No, we don't, because this particular law, no matter how detailed it goes, no matter how arbitrary powers of attachment given to the deputy directors, joint directors under ED, they fail to have that claw, they fail to have that teeth that can actually bite and get hold of the accused. Because to be honest, once the property is attached that to in a very haywire manner, there is absolutely nothing the authorities could manage to do after that. I mean, if I ask what next, there has been nothing there. It's almost like freezing my bank account and giving me power to just roam around freely in the country, and at times manage to go abroad as well. So the aim to cut down the menace of money laundering per se has not happened.
Yeah. Soumya ma'am, thank you for that introduction. With especially to the Sushant Singh Rajput case, it was evident to see with such a high profile case that every single authority wanted a piece of the pie. But for our audience today, could you just explain the offense of money laundering in as layman terms as you could?
Sure. So let me just get you back to the history. In the history of times, this particular case actually literally went down to what laundering meant. It was all about washing dirty linens, and that is what this particular term came into picture. A man who actually started this particular business in US in 1930s used to have a proper legit ways, or if I may so call it, legit ways to legitimize his source of money and taxes and investments evasion through a business of laundering clothes. So that is how this originated into picture. But coming back to our country, money laundering simply means conversion of black, that is the dirty money, into the white money, that is the clean money, where the black money may not be white legally, but apparently it has become so. Yeah. It looks like it is a legit source of income, whereby it is on the contrary, it is not. The process of money laundering is also, if you hear it in the colloquial language, it is known as jama kharchi. And a very similar term which you'll hear, which is most of the times into picture, is the hawala money. So all of this, is a very usual term in the streets of India, where it seems to be, they keep it low. They try to keep it, out of sight and out of mind. There's no flashy places. Yeah, absolutely clandestine in their nature. But then they are the one who, they are the ones who run this unorganized sector of the economy, which, gives a huge impact to the entire, ecosystem of the country, financial ecosystem of the country, in a very, very negative manner. Because, let me just explain you, further in detail, so that it can help our audience to understand, if I may say, some examples of, how money laundering is so usually done, maybe next door, and we are unaware of it, For example, if, we are living in metro cities, we get to know, these are the top shotguns of the country, top shotguns of the particular city or metropolitan city. But, let us also go to the B tier, C tier kind of cities. There could be some man, Mr. A, who would have got, say, about crores of, black money, and wants to, use it in his business. And the modus operandi that he tries to, do is, he tries to buy a raw material, capital goods, for some other services, for that matter, in black money, and shows them in his books on accounts of as a credit purchase. Now, people here with little bit of, accounts, knowledge would understand what a credit purchase is. The catch here is that the actual payment has already been made in the black money. the above process of, converting it into, or trying to apparently show it through your, accounts book, is the fictitious kind of a creditors, say about suspense, in the transactions that has been made, multiple transactions being made in the books of accounts, so much so that one after the other, it is so difficult to trace back as to what was the original source
yeah.
of the funds. So primarily, this is what, leads to laundering, if I may call it so. Politics has been a very, very integral part of every Indian, quite so in the past few years, with this government trying to uproot one of the oldest party of the country. And they could only manage to do it with not only the support that they try or they get in actual reality over social media, but they also need money to raise, such funds to, run a campaign worth thousands of crores. You pick up any rally, if you may recall, Samir, not too far away, 2019, it is countless, when it comes to, jotting down the number of virtual rallies done by Amit Shah or Narendra Modi. I'm not trying to malign any particular person or a party here, but then one may realize that these funds of the parties, play a pivotal role in running a campaign in one particular direction that leads to a thumping majority. Now, where does this money comes from? Not only with the unorganized sectors of the economy, but then at times there are supporters from outside the country as well.
Yeah.
So, donations to the political parties, if I may say so, it saves tax to say about 25%. So this incentive is also given by the government that, that could lead to, or, attract you to actually make the donation. So it can do best to both the parties. And when
And
a
if the
political
party
party
wins as well, you're
absolutely
obviously in their good books
would
afterwards.
want it, right? It becomes
Yeah.
that vicious circle that, you choose us, we give you the tax rebate, and then of course you fund us again for another tenure, and that is how it goes. And political parties who has black money returns the black money to the black money corporation after changing their commission. I mean, let us not take two very big names of the country, but then you and I, we both know it, how they managed to get every possible tender from every possible field from this very government, who fetches the maximum out of these two very big business houses. Not too much to say, not too much to, the guess of the audience here. We see big names in the 5G spectrums being auctioned. Rafael, brother one and brother two, both, trying to, occupy different territories. National education policy coming into picture, and huge investments being heard to, being made in the electronic medium of the, education sector. Apart from that, a lot of investment getting from Facebook, doing investments, and some deals trying to be, making rounds the corner, whether they are getting into TikTok. So if you get to see, it is impossible for a particular business house to reach to that level of monotony without the government support. So this vicious circle of, exchanging returns cannot be done without, illegitimate source of money. Because, when it comes to accountancy, we still don't have much of a provision apart from the tax rebate that we've already mentioned when it comes to supporting a political party, not just on a social media platform, but through supporting their legit or illegit, campaigns. Because we also get to hear news pieces, deep rooted, in the, say, about not only suburbs, but the typical rural areas where the liquor is being, distributed amongst people a night before the election, or any special favors given to them. And then people just vanish right after the people have voted for their representatives out of nowhere. Where does all these funds come from? It is definitely the tainted money. Apart from that, this could be, something about a commoner to understand what money laundering is. But then there are sophisticated ways to make investments, if per se, if I may call so, and, launder the money.
Yeah.
Now, if you just go a few years back, Mr. Chidambaram Senior and Chidambaram Junior have been in limelights in and out of jails, in the Aircel Maxis case, and a lot of news makings around the corner as to how there were shell companies, specifically, investing in Karthik Chidambaram's company here in India. And when one could try to, made an attempt, the investigating authorities making an attempt to trace back as to where this money came from, they didn't come up with some good news in hands. I mean,
It's quite difficult once the money's been spent.
absolutely. I mean, if I may say, not spent once the money is invested.
Invest. Okay.
Once the money has been infused, in the economy by Chidambaram getting special favors in his company, it is very difficult to trace back as to who these people were who just came to, Mauritius, got their company registered, made an investment to Karthik's company. And then when you trace back, the companies are all washed out. And even the government or the investigating authorities of Mauritius were unable to trace back as to where did all of this go. Another very fine example that I want to give you as to how even the financial institutions also kind of support. Now, we all know the biggest election manifesto of the NDA government, NDA 1, was we would bring all the black money into the economy of India, and each one would get 15 lakhs in their respective account. No matter how wishful it may sound, it equally is the most impractical manifesto ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do a bashing here. I'm just trying to show that when my law or my prosecution body, my investigating agencies are not empowered enough to take deterrent decisions against the accused, those promises just go in vain. A very small example that I want to put you from, from the personal, case that I was lucky to be part of, was one of the initial cases of Mr. Hassan Ali Khan from Pune, who was a history maker in the history of tax evasion of our country, to the tunes of 36,000 crores back in 2005 and 6. And let me tell you, the present state of scenario is that the matter before the PMLA Appellate Tribunal is still pending. They have challenged the provisional attachment order of their properties back in Pune and Mumbai. The process is that when the government of India gets to know about such, investments being done in UBS AG, a bank of Switzerland, Swiss bank, rings any bell? Of
Yes,
course it
ma'am,
does.
of course.
I mean, it at times, Swiss bank and black money act like
hand in hand.
synonyms to each other. Yeah, they act like synonyms to each other. So, of course, it's very, luring to even read about, such matters. And when I was part of it, I was trying to dig deeper as to how did the chain go, how did they catch hold of it, and how did it was realized whether, the actual evasion was done or not. What was the tax haven? Where did the money go? How many people were involved? Was he just a scapegoat who is the actual beneficiary behind it? So a process of letter regulatory is done through one country to the other. And when I say this, it means a government of one country can also send letter rogatories to another country, say the government of that country, an organization / financial institution of that country, an individual of that country. So India sent a letter rogatory to UBS AG stating that we want to have information about, economic offenses done back in India in relation to one of your clients, say Hassan Ali Khan, where we have, seized electronic evidences stating that he has transferred almost, $1 billion in less than 24 hours. We would want to have each and every information regards to this.
Ma'am, how effective are these methods taken up by countries to get information? Because I mean, from my point of thinking is that a country like the United States or China, if they make a certain request, countries like Switzerland are in a lesser powerful position globally to sort of evade these questions. They would have ramifications.
So they successfully do so, and that is why they run.
Yeah.
Their modus operandi, to be honest, Samir, is on the fact that they are very, very secretive about their clients.
So wouldn't countries who do not have the footing on globally, like say, very sorry to say India at this stage, wouldn't they have an even more difficult task to get out information from Switzerland?
You actually guessed it right, Samir. What I was about to tell you is the same.
Sorry, ma'am. Yeah.
No. So, thank you for just supporting was what you just, made my point more easy, because what happened was when UBS AG released a one letter, reply to what the government of India has to know, they said that we do have someone in the name of Hassan Ali Khan, but then that's not how the name is spelled. My client, spells his name as KAHN Khan and not KHAN
KHAN.
Khan, and that is why it is not the same person you're referring to, and thus this particular Hassan Ali Khan being interrogated about is not my client, and thus I'm not answerable to any of your question in relation to such
Yeah.
individual.
A
And
very
they were done.
easy and convenient point for them to
Typical
come
bona
up with.
fide
Yeah.
typographical error, if I may call it, but then they were done with it. And government of India absolutely could not do anything after that. Despite of the fact that they could manage to recover a laptop, a pen drive, and rest of the other electronic evidences that clearly showed the account statements of Mr. Khan, in regards to UBS AG and several other, things that I can't mention on the portal. But then the reply was just outstanding. And maybe this is the reason that it is one of the safest tax, heaven for all the people who still want to, go through that route. Although the new tax haven are now being London and Mauritius, and pretty much so. We'll discuss a little bit later as well why participatory notes also came so much, into picture in regards to, money being laundered and then vanish out of nowhere, and no one has an idea what is this brainchild, which is even worse than, cryptocurrencies, which were,
Yeah.
a lot in news for past few years before RBI or the apex court would come up through a, regulatory laws as to how to, run or have a particular act under which the, running or exchanging of cryptocurrency can happen. Since we do not have a legit law, till date, people are going haywire about it. And yes, money laundering is the biggest negative outcome to it because of our lack of proper, laws. Yeah, definitely.
Ma'am, so usually a country is the person who investigates the cases of within the country. But do we have a specific body that deals with the cases regarding money laundering?
Definitely. So, particularly as far as India is concerned, before PMLA came into picture, we had certain provisions under the IPC, and it was regulated. The entire proceedings was done under CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code. But then, of course, there were certain deviations, and there are marked deviations from the standard procedure, considering special nature of the offenses, and more so now cross-border in character, going totally global about, money laundering. It was a requirement to have a proper law that could actually, cover cross-border, crimes, economic offenses, and financial crimes. Although this kind of a particular offense is cognizable in nature, and that means arrest could be made without a warrant. We needed a specialized investigating body, for such kind of offenses, and thus under the Ministry of Finance, the Department of Revenue had Directorate of Enforcement, which is, commonly known as ED, that comes into picture. I mean, I'm sure it rings bell to everyone who's listening. ED ने आज यहाँ पे रेड करी है, ED ने आज उनको सीज किया है, ED ने आज इनका इंटरव्यू लिया है. Riya Chakraborty appeared thrice for 12 hours each day, before ED. But then I can, assure you, Samir, down the line for years to come, nothing would happen. Absolutely nothing. As far as the agencies are concerned, SEBI, IRDA, for that matter, Serious Fraud Investigation Unit, of course, ED is there. These are the agencies that can, investigate a matter and, move ahead with the prosecution. There is of course, custom department, CBI, local police is also not evaded. It's just that, to kickstart, of course, it starts with a normal criminal complaint or an FIR. And then, when they understand there has been, tainted money involved, and there has been a proceeds of crime due to the schedule offenses, then, of course, the rest of the investigating agencies come into picture. I don't know why I want to pick the SSR case, because it's very recent and we could see the twists and turns happening as to whose jurisdiction was it initially, and what this particular case had, lead us to. If you see the chain of events, Samir, Mumbai police, declared it as a suicide case and did not register any case against anyone without any investigation, preliminary investigation. It was the Bihar police that took the FIR from the SSR's father that had led to serious fright, reaching up to the apex court, and thus the CBI was directed, to take up the matter from there. And when CBI came into picture, parallelly, ED had kickstart. They wanted to register a formal complaint, but then, of course, the investigations were on, and of course, no attachment has been done so far, because it is too early to say anything, and they've not been successfully able to establish the money trail. One very important thing with PMLAs, which is, of course, the positive side, that the typical criminal procedural law expects a person to be, not guilty, because it is up to the prosecution to establish that, yes, a crime has been, or an offense has been committed. The burden of proof
is still on the prosecution itself.
Prosecution itself. PMLA being the only act where the burden of proof.
Sorry, Soumya ma'am, 1 minute.
Sure.
I'd request the audience to once again, please keep yourselves on mute. Thank you very much, and fill up the attendance form if you haven't already. But please, everyone else, keep yourselves on mute. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, please continue.
That's okay. So, where was I?
You were talking about the attachment of property initially.
Attachment of properties, correct. So it is too early to, attach anyone's property, to be naming it as proceeds of crime, because in a way, ED failed in the shortest period of time to establish the fact that it was actually out of tainted money. And once they failed to do so, they had to bring NCB into picture. They had to bring CBI into picture. So it brings me to the main crux of this particular, session, that as to how PMLA, schedule offenses, proceeds of crime, tainted money, all of this, runs, and parallelly, it has been taken care of. To start with, PMLA alone does not plays its part. It is always along with the substitute crime, which is mentioned under the scheduled offenses. There is a certain schedule mentioned at the end of the act that covers a lot of acts further. For example, if I have 5 CR in my account and I'm claiming it to be, coming through legit sources, I cannot be prosecuted under PMLA before the special court, that deals with PMLA matters, solely because I have 5 CR. The prosecution has to initially just prove that I might have been, committing an offense under the list of scheduled offenses that had led me to acquire that 5 CR, which I am now trying to show as, clean money. So these schedule offenses are very wide in nature. The reason behind this is the government of India wanted to include maximum acts under, schedule offenses, so that they could widen the ambit of PMLA, prosecutions. Yeah. For starting with from murder to, harming the wildlife sanctuaries or the products of wildlife, to, of course, narcotics, customs, smuggling, for that matter, Ponzi schemes, electronic crimes, social media crimes, chit fund, for that matter. And of course, the rest of them also follows. They try to broaden the aspect so as to, whenever the tunes of the money goes higher, the radar also needs to be broadened enough to cover such offenses, because you just can't solely prosecute a person under a PMLA, act. More so, it also lays an impact that if I've been charged of murder of A, and in return of which B has given me 5 crores, if the prosecution body fails to prove the fact that A was not murdered by me at the behest of B, the PMLA proceedings, on me also goes into vain.
Yeah.
So if the prosecution fails to prove that I am not a convict for a murder case, and I was prosecuted under PMLA for the same murder case, that being the scheduled offense or predicate offense, I am also allowed to let go from I'm also discharged from the PMLA proceedings as well. So PMLA alone cannot, play its part. That is why, in particularly SSR's case, ED could not go beyond, because the murder fact was not able to get established as yet. So they tried to lay emphasis on the
drugs,
narcotics and the psychotropic, that is the drugs part.
Yeah.
Now they're trying really, really hard. The NCB is trying really, really hard in order to establish, the crime. As soon as they do it, ED again will come into picture. So ED is pretty much depending right now on what NCB, can fetch maximum out of the people, in the police custody, apart from Riya Chakrabarti, his sibling, and of the rest of the people. And they're trying to, doing that typical crackdown, across the country, almost, down south, and getting drug dealers from, all nooks and corners, and trying to, establish a trail and show that, these monies has nothing but been a byproduct of these, psychotropic drug dealing that has been done. And Sushant having crores of rupees in his account, and over a 3 years period of time, say about he earned certain amount and 90% of his income was just wiped out. This could be the reason to it, and that is what the modus operandi of establishing the proceeds of crime under PMLA is. And now, fingers crossed as to how do they establish to do it. But, it is not about what they do in this particular case. What has happened to all the cases where they have managed to, establish, draw the line and figure out that, yes, this has been nothing but a product of proceeds of crime. The attachments of the properties has arbitrarily been done across the countries. In fact, if you go back nothing far away, I think between 2016 to 2019, thousands of crores of property had been attached in India and abroad. But then how many people do we get to see behind the bars? None. Absolutely not. If they have filed so since 2002, there are hardly 9 or 8 people who have been prosecuted. And of course, they have their own rights to appeal and reach up to the apex court. And that is why there is no deterrent effect to this particular law. In fact, in reverse, it has become a matter of great pride for people to be prosecuted under PMLA, because it only established the fact that I am financially and, power-wise the alpha person, and you better don't mess with me, because people have just got people go. Neera Radia in particular matter, where she was trying to broker a deal for Tatas, could not manage to establish the fact, the ED could not manage to establish the fact that she was trying to, license, and license and betting again is still not, a legal source in India. And despite that, those particular data, that audio being leaked, where she's clearly trying to broker a deal for Tatas, they couldn't touch her for a day. They had to let her go. And considering she was too smart to be, in their clutches. But then there are several other people, so many big names, MLAs, MPs, maximum politicians, under the radar, and they're, just roaming around free. And they're also fighting elections. More so, they are head of their states, they are chief ministers, or they are, some MLAs. I mean, so it gives absolutely no deterrent effect, no sense of fear whatsoever in letting a person getting involved into such illegitimate activities.
Ma'am, so my question at this point would be that since, as mentioned, that most of these cases are up against people who are very powerful, either they have a lot of money at their accounts, or they have a lot of political power. The main question, I guess, at this point would be is what kind of action can be brought against these people if the conviction is so low, and even after conviction, people are still able to, like you said, roam around freely and generally enjoy their lives. What action can be brought against these people?
So, Samir, so far, unfortunately, apart from attachment of properties and arresting a person and serving a term, anything between 3 years to 7 years, maximum of 10 years, this particular act has nothing to offer. People do not have that sense of fears. If I earn 800 crores and I go into the jail for 7 years and I'm back, I have my money safe because the government has absolutely nothing to do after, attaching my property. I am as free soul as anyone else. If my government takes 6 years to get Malia back, I am as good as anybody. He's having fun. He's wearing one of the most, expensive clothes in the world. He's having a gala time. He's just been appearing before the court saying that, the jails of India wouldn't suit my health and thus I don't want to go back. It only shows how the prosecution system of India is so weakened that some people can manage to do fraud to the tunes of 7,000 crores, including consortium of 7 banks, and just, let it go. So more so it brings into picture as to what has been done, but then also we need to concentrate what needs to be done. Financial Action Task Force, a global entity that, tries to wreck up countries, who are, not good with, handling prevention of money laundering, because let's accept it, when it comes to money laundering, not only the economy of the country, but then it is an interconnect relationship with so many countries, giving that impact, and the ripple effect, of course, goes further. Financial Action Task Force sends a report that says that small countries from Africa and, say Zimbabwe or Alabama and rest of the other countries are the centers of money laundering. Our most favorite neighbor, Pakistan, is on the FATF list. But then apart from, and earlier it was in the gray list, now they've been just given 4 months of, say, breather to, wreck up their ways and mend their ways and stop terror financing and all of that. This is happening nationally. Internationally. Nationally, apart from just, attaching the property, our government is absolutely doing nothing about it. So what we need to do is we need to give bigger claws and teeth to the prosecution. A very big lacuna here is we do not include the financial institution. Let us accept it, in the recent times with electronic media and electronic mediums coming into picture, in a way they have curbed the usage of notes, the legal, if I may call, tainted or untainted, but then usage of currency notes. But then through these medias, they could have stricter laws to regulate as to how Paytm is to work, how PhonePe will work, how Bheem UPI app is going to work. So it gives more so the power of the prosecution bodies to regulate the transactions that has been done through these particular mediums. But then is it so that due to the usage of such, electronic mediums, it has curbed down the corruption or the laundering?
I
No,
doubt it, ma'am, because
not at all.
I don't think initially itself black money was used in electronic means anyways, because that would be a very easy way to trace. I think most
Correct.
of it was cash exchanging hands.
Correct. But the point is, in today's time, if you, and let us see the trend, that we usually get to see in the maximum money laundering cases. People usually, invest in the real estate, the properties, Benami properties come into picture. And then apart from that, of course, some sources of luxury and, some investments outside, or, some investments in the corporates within the country, and then the money is routed through and it becomes clean. when it comes to this, you will also realize that now they can't be buying the plot, or they can't be buying a real estate property, or they can't be investing in a corporate, through currency notes. They are obviously, routed through financial institutions. And when I say financial institutions, I mean banks, NBFCs, and other, categories of the financial institutions. Where we are lacking is we are not taking into consideration these financial institutions who are providing such liquidity to, all these people.
So,
How
ma'am,
is it?
do these financial institutions have any obligations or
No, they don't.
duties under the PMLA Act?
So there are multiple master circular being, released. There are multiple master circulars being released, directing by the RBI, directing, several banks to as to how have maximum KYCs, make sure and cross check the personal guarantors, make sure that the bank guarantees are into picture. And then of course, asset reconstruction companies also, come into picture. So they are expected, and expectations and realities are two different things. They are expected to have record of all the transactions, the nature and the value prescribed. Now you may understand, बहुत commonly होता है कि कभी हमारे पापा या हमारे दादाजी या हमारे अंकल कभी कोई ट्रांजैक्शन एक अमाउंट, एक लिमिटेड अमाउंट से ज्यादा कर देते हैं, तो उनको बैंक की ब्रांच से कॉल आ जाता है कि सर आपको अचानक से इतना फंड क्यों ट्रांसफर करना पड़ा, एक सिंगल ट्रांजैक्शन में आप इतना इंफॉर्मेशन कहाँ लेके जा रहे हो. कभी तो आपकी ये इतनी लेवल ऑफ विजिलेंस होती है, और कभी 7,000 करोड़ साइफन ऑफ हो जाता है, और पर्सनल गारंटर पंजाब के किसी गांव का एक किसान होता है.
It becomes very suspicious.
It becomes super suspicious until and unless people from the bank are not hands in gloves with these top shots. How is it even possible? Absolutely. I mean, if I feel that every transaction that I've made is being monitored, how is it that it is happening? How is it? And this is the reason why Rana Kapoor himself from the Yes Bank has been prosecuted. So it has only come down to one, conclusion. We have to include financial institutions as far as the, inquiries, investigations, and of course further process under PMLA is concerned, because they are the biggest bodies where any economy of the country bank upon. That is one. Number two, they are the ones who provide the liquidity to these people. They are the ones who, declare the non-performing assets, and they try to sell off whatever they have for the person who is evading with so much so of their money that, we need to secure our fair share of money. You'll realize it, Samir. There are so many particular banks, small cooperative banks, that got shut down at regional levels only because there was one single client or customer that evaded with the entire, budget, or the entire particular stashed amount of the money with the branch particular cooperative bank.
I think before Vijay Mallya had fled to London, there was another man who had fled to the UK who had some issue with the Punjab National Bank, if I'm not wrong. And he was
Nirav Modi happened after. Nirav Modi, if PNB scam happened after, but then the other Modi, Lalit Modi, had gone before that. But that man is super powerful because he was hands in gloves with so many people. All these IPL, top knots, from Kundras to Shettis to Preeti Zinta to, Nes Wadia. He was, and he was totally blunt about it that, you better don't mess with me, because to hell with your blue corner notice and red corner notice and Interpol coming into picture. If you try to touch me, I'm going to bring everyone down with me. And when this happens, of course, people have that sense of fear to not to rub him in the wrong place, because he has it all. I mean, he has the entire kacha chitta, if I may call it, of all these people. And if you particularly, trace the news, you will see not many things happening against Mallyas and Modis and Choksis, but then not Lalit Modi, because he was blunt and clear about it. And he's running his business. He's running his business while sitting in UK. Nothing has stopped here. Modi Nagar is one city quite close to Ghaziabad in UP, which is entirely owned by this man and his family. And it's an open and shut thing. People just don't have that sense of fear that, we might just have a crackdown someday from some investigating authority because Lalit Modi sitting in London is being, prosecuted under PMLA or ED or any other, laundering case. Because yes, he's powerful. He knows it all, and he can bring, big establishments down. And that is why he's like a live wire. People don't want to touch him. And of course, let's accept it. Come back to what has happened in the Malia's case. Malia had lost a case against government of India back in 2009, where he was supposed to submit 5 crores and his passport was about to be confiscated, which did not happen in 2009. And very, very easily he could manage to, just fly away with 17 bags full of money. And of course, his things of requirement, in one shot, and they could do nothing about it. So yeah, our prosecution is also, in a way weakened, whereby they're not being able to take correct measures to curb it down, despite several anti-money laundering guidelines being passed on by international bodies. We've been failed. I mean, we're relatively better than, say, 70% of the countries, but then we have failed in our own standards when it comes to dealing with people under our own, country act, which is PMLA, or for that matter, any other stringent act. PMLA is considered to be an umbrella act which covers, almost everything related to tainted money. So theoretically, it might be, a very holistic or say about comprehensive kind of an act. But then when it comes down to its practical implications, we've been miserably failed in, bringing in results.
Yes. So like you said that I think one of the steps that our country has taken was obviously during the Modi government, the introduction of the new currency notes and the replacing of the old currency note. Demonetization. Exactly, ma'am. So I feel if you could shed light upon one, how effective the demonetization whole scheme was, and any such other steps that the government has taken to tackle black money in India.
Okay, so yeah, definitely demonetization for a very short period of time, but then it laid an impact, and which could be very blatantly seen in the disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Because I was kind of having a conversation with someone from the army, and I was, just trying to get hold of the information where it actually happened that, stone pelting, one of the common, it's a kind of a manrega labor being, hired in their own colloquial language to, throw stones and, fetch money on a daily basis. So yes, definitely back in 2016 when this happened, stone pelting came down to, as less as say 10% or 15% of, how much this kind of an activity used to happen against our armed personnel or any other paramilitary forces. This had come down because, there was shortage of new notes, and old notes were not being able to circulate through Pakistan. To our surprise, let me just also tell you, it was not just Pakistan, it was also China infusing such money to, create disturbance in that particular part of the territory. But yeah, for a significant period of time, it did bring things to the halt. And as far as the rest of the country is concerned, it was a knee-jerk only for a small and medium-scale enterprises. As far as the big business houses are concerned, they've only gone richer.
Yeah, I mean, since most of them hold most of the wealth anyways, don't you think that the whole scheme was a little bit misdirected in that sense?
It was, it happened at the wrong time, Samir. It happened at the wrong time because 2012 was the peak for real estate in India. The bank were generously enough, were giving out loans, a lot of home loans to, people, and a lot of loans were given to the builders to, raise the infrastructure of the country. And that is when the demonetization happened, and due to the wrong timing, all the money got stashed. People just, became, bankrupt. There was a jerk in the proper circular running of the funds. And that is why the real estate went down, the banks went down, NPA rose like record level high. And the ultimate purpose of curbing corruption altogether just did not happen, unfortunately. Although India does have a bilateral extradition treaties, into force with, say, about 25 odd countries, including, members of OECD and everyone, where Hong Kong, China, Korea, Mongolia, Nepal, and, rest of the other countries are also into picture that have, signed, but is not in force between India and I think Philippines. and Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Singapore, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. So India does have bilateral, relationships with, such countries where they can have the extradition process as soon as possible.
Ma'am,
The end result again, is, unfortunately brought down to zero.
Because I mean, my first issue with that is that Mr. Vijay Mallya is not going to run away with his money to Papua New Guinea. That's the only problem. I guess we're not making deals with the countries that are actually important again.
So this brings to another very important point, Samir. What countries makes the best, money laundering or tax haven centers? It is not the developed countries. Could you just share a slide? I think slide number 10.
1 second. Yeah. Alhamna, can you please?
Yeah. So I'll try to explain you through this particular slide.
Okay.
Directions of flow of tainted money. I mean, I've tried to keep it a little basic so that all of us could relate to what it is. So there are different directions to how to divert the tainted money. The domestic is, of course, explains for itself. Delhi to Mumbai to Assam to Kashmir to Gujarat. If I make that web, no prosecution will be able to trace it down for the longest period of time. Second is I sent money to Alabama, and then I invest in one of the countries there, and that particular company that I have invested in, or I can also ask, I've given some funds to the government, and the government can redirect one of its, judicial person, any company, any corporate to, again invest back in my company back in India. So that is like returning or resuming, if I may call it. Inbound is, of course, a series of inflow of money. That is where the developed and the developing countries come into picture. The pattern is that money has been diverted. All these diversion of money happens from developed countries to the developing countries, because of course there has been less vigilance in the developing countries. I mean, imagine if this is the condition in India, what is happening down in Africa and Zimbabwe and rest of the other countries. If I may be honest, I think the top countries are Alabama and rest of the countries. Just wait for a second, let me just tell you. FATA blacklist जो latest अभी picture में आई है, उसमें Albania, Bahamas, Barbados, Botswana, Cambodia. So you can see Ghana, Iceland, Jamaica. Only familiar name, to our proximity is Pakistan. Rest is most of the countries are in Africa. And although Pakistan also made, it is said apparently they've made little, progress, but then still they're non-compliant, and they've exhausted the 15 months plan of mending their ways, and they've been given 4 final months. So the trend is all these big countries, including China and US and UK, they try to, invest in smaller countries which are still, in debt, still, deprived, still, under less vigilance. And of course, they have resources. They do have natural resources. But then since they are not under the radar of the prosecution bodies, international and national, it is easy for them to invest money in these countries, and of course getting richer day by day. I mean, imagine if I have say 100 odd coal mines or diamond mines back in South Africa or somewhere, and nobody is keeping a check on it. This is what China does. China does not only invests in big countries. $500 million is absolutely nothing for China, but it could be a GDP of one very small country of, African continent.
Absolutely, ma'am. Yeah.
So, it is easy for them to just acquire those countries, their territories, make them in debt forever and rule. This is how, their chain of, flowing the money. I'm not always saying it is tainted money, but then one can get a generic idea. This is a country, there are certain people or there are certain corporates who are into money laundering. That is how they also work. They try to invest money. These countries becomes the tax havens of, people from the developed country, or say, if not exactly top notch superpowers of the world, but then maybe a country like India also, it is very easy to invest further, in lesser in known or third world, kind of countries.
So
Of
it's
course,
sort
the
of a
fourth,
vicious cycle type. So
absolutely.
the money is coming in is already black, and then since there are low regulations in that country, it's going out without regulation, and then further investment and further, it's just the rich keep getting richer, and then the poor just remain poor.
Samir, this is the scariest part. To
Yeah.
be very honest, this is, if you give so much power to someone that he managed to, run or decides the law of the country, and I mean, just imagine. It cannot be a coincidence for 20 times in a row that whenever there has been some import of products of Reliance, when Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was the finance minister, the custom rates, the goods are inside the territory, it goes higher.
Yeah.
20 times in a stretch. So if I am powerful enough to regulate and decide the law of the land, it becomes dangerously scary for the rest of the other people. I mean, where are we heading to? At the end of the day, we are a democratic country. We are not some anarchy. We are not some, someone in the hands of the corporate. And wherever the trend is leading us to, very soon we might be. This is the scariest part.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to ask you, ma'am, since you said that the PMLA also has its hands, or it's like an umbrella sort of act that reaches across and involves many other acts. In areas where there is conflict between provisions of the PMLA and other acts, which one would take precedence, and which one? How would the lawmakers and the lawyers deal with a situation like that?
Samir, again, this is again a very bottleneck situation, to be honest. I mean, different courts have different things to say. Although in PMLA and in IBC both, they say that it has an overriding clause, but then there are different laws passed by the Apex Court and the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal in regards to their own respective laws. If you straight away, go through the act, PMLA says that it has an overriding effect over all the other, acts of the land or the laws of the land. But then recently an order being passed by NCLAT that says that, they have to go parallelly, they have to go hand in hand. Now, allow me to explain you how that happens. So there are attachment of properties under IBC and also under PMLA. If a company, and let us also accept it for a fact that in today's time, it is very difficult for an individual solely to, carry out such, activities and, be a one-man army to it. Now we are seeing the trends that these crimes are usually corporate, oriented kind of a crime. All these top-notch, companies making their subsidiaries, holdings, shell companies, trying to divert funds from here and there, raising IPO of one from one company and diverting the funds to the other company for a different reason altogether. This is also, and thus, making a cobweb of how, they're just trying to, crash down the economy on the whole. When such corporates come into picture, of course, there are, so let's take for an example, there is a company that has raised an IPO and there are people who have invested in taking shares, and now they are not able to get proper returns and start house, and only later it was discovered that of course there were proceeds of crime and the money was being laundered, and thus ED also comes into picture. Now there are two parallel proceedings happening. One is, just hold on, it says my internet is yeah, it's
Unstable.
fine. I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yeah. So under PMLA, under Companies Act, certain, diversion has been done, non-compliances has been done, the funds have been diverted to some other country altogether. And of course, under at the other end, there is one financial creditor who has approached the NCLAT saying that, there has been, I have not been, there has been a default in the payment, and due to this particular default, I want the insolvency resolution proceedings to be initiated against a particular person. And in both the cases, they have power to freeze and attach the property. Now, it is very difficult for two prosecution bodies to lock horns for a common cause. And that is why NCLAT had passed an order saying that, you have to, work parallelly, you have to work together. But then it very much, brings the prosecution bodies in a fix as to how to go about it. And until unless we do not have the clarity, I think the person into the picture, the accused is going to get the benefit of doubt. He will only get the right to put up the application before the High Court saying that, my money is freezed before NCLAT, my proceedings should be, put on hold, my PMLA proceedings should be put on hold for, say, about indefinite period of time. Because at times, even the CIRP crosses 330 days on special grounds, and the matter is pending, and it is on and on and on, and nobody is coming down to a proper conclusion. Of course, PMLA has this constant threat of, arresting you and putting you behind the bars, at least on the record, not in reality. But then, the biggest fear is your property being attached. Under NCLAT, of course, after a period of time, when the process is completed, there are chances that your property might be defreezed. But then what has been the trend under PMLA, that it has not been detached for a longest period of time. There are hardly, cases that can be counted on the fingertips where the a provisional order of attachment has been set aside and the properties were defreezed. Hardly any case, like very few cases has happened. So what has happened ultimately, that I bought a property which has been freezed, movable, immovable, whatever that may be, for a longest period of time, and there are two prosecutions locking hands, and there is no clarity of law. And at the end of the day, I am in a fix. I am not able to do my business. I'm not able to move abroad. I'm not able to sell the property. I might just be innocent, who has been wrongly prosecuted, but then I have to wait, and I cannot take any decision, private or personal, till the longest period of time, because both these prosecutions are trying to investigate and move ahead against me, but then no one has a ultimate say to it. So there is still no clarity.
So specifically for the people who are looking at either innocent or guilty, who have their properties attached, do they have any recourse or remedy available to them?
So per se, there are hardly 2-3 cases where, again, I'm going to say that the properties has been detached. The usual scenario is when the ED does the search and seizure, and they are convinced for the fact that, something is wrong, and they collect the evidence, and they prepared, the documentation is done, the ECIR has been registered. That is how it kickstarts the criminal prosecution under PMLA. Within 30 days, I mean, they attach the property, the provisional attachment order is done, and within 30 days, they file the complaint, and the matter goes, under the adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority, say about, out of 100, say about 99 cases, it confirms the provisional attachment order, against which one can go in an appeal. Okay. One can go against the order being, confirmed. One can go in the appeal, and that is where the matters are pending. And then PMLAT has such a heavy cause list. And if you see the cause list, you will feel like you are sitting before one of the biggest corporate hubs of India, because it has got all big names. It is right in Delhi itself, Khan Market, where you'll get to see all these big names coming up, but nothing substantial, actually happening. Not at all. Hardly there are cases. I think Delhi High Court had given a favorable judgment where they have detached the property of the person, that too after a significant period of 4.5 years. Meanwhile, more so, people can even die, or can be declared insolvent or whatsoever, but property is still attached.
That would be my next question. In instances when proceedings have already been initiated and it's pending before the court, what happens to individuals who have died or who have declared themselves insolvent? Would that
So,
change the procedure as such?
no, it doesn't. Of course, the legal representatives or the official assignees or the official receiver may again, go before an appeal before the appellate tribunal or the high court, or continue to appeal before the, if at all there has been appeal filed before the death or the person being declared insolvent in place of such person. That's all can happen. Nothing else.
Okay.
So it only makes the process being, pending and ongoing till the longest period of time.
It just increases the waiting time for the individual to get justice.
Absolutely.
Okay, ma'am. I think we have one question from the audience at this point, ma'am. Ankita Srivastava asks, is Panama Papers related to money laundering?
Well, Panama Papers has actually act as a vigilant, trying to reflect what all names are actually included that have that actually own tainted, monies. But then if you see, if I'm not wrong, Amitabh Bachchan's name was also, coming into limelight. Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan.
Ma'am, could you give us a little bit background about the Panama Papers for those who are not familiar with what it is?
Okay, so Panama Leaks is another, fiasco that had happened, that had claimed that they have authentic documented evidences to prove what all people have, owned, and they have diverted and they have rediverted the tainted source of money. Like, they have made a money trail, not necessarily under the scheduled offenses of our act, because it was a global kind of a list where people from every nook and corner of the world was picked up randomly, and there was a definite deep-rooted research work with supported documents and evidence by these Panama Leaks personnel were ready, and they had leaked a list of people as well, where they were about 15 Indian names also into picture, primarily Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan. But then this also happened, say, about 4 to 5 years back, and I think after that, Shah Rukh Khan came up with 2 hits and Amitabh Bachchan with 3.
So there was absolutely no effect to them. Okay.
You tell me. Not at all. Not at all. No. I mean, they have a gala time altogether, don't they?
Yes, ma'am. Of course. Always.
Always.
I think that answered Ankita's question pretty well. If anyone else has any other questions, please do send it in the chat box and ma'am will address it immediately. Another question I would have is, personally for you, what ways do you think the PLMA Act can improve so that it can deal with all of its shortcomings?
Okay, I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it. I'll emphasize again on this particular thing that, there are several acts, Samir, of this country who give powers to the prosecution body to arrest a person, and it gives power to the respective courts to give a statement to serve the imprisonment, okay, from minimum 3 years to say about lifetime imprisonment. But has this come up successfully as a deterrent effect on the people? No. When it comes to offenses against body, maybe there is a little bit of sense of fear, although the crime rates have not gone, low since forever. But then when it comes to financial crimes covered under PMLA, we all will agree to one thing, that the impact of such crimes is not individual specific. Murder होता है जिसके घर का आदमी होता है, उसका impact होता है. Until unless he is not some international entity or a national level, some say about Prime Minister of India or something like that. अगर कोई मरता है तो उसके घर वालों को impact होता है, जिस कंपनी में वो होता है उसको impact होता है, and after a period of time everything goes off. लेकिन जब विजय माल्या 7,000 करोड़ का घपला करता है तो इकोनॉमी हिल जाती है इन वन वे और द अदर. जब एक साथ हजारों करोड़ के, लाखों करोड़ के घोटाले होते हैं तो इकोनॉमी हिल जाती है. Everything comes crumbling down. Now just imagine, maybe I can just take, I can take a liberty to take few more names जो कि recent में, so that let me just brush up the memory of all our viewers right now. And let's see what they have to say to it. I'll just see the list and I'll take Robert Vadra. Yes, that is one of the very popular names. And when election was around the corner, Mr. Vadra was being asked to appear before ED, and they used to, appear for say about 12 hours, 13 hours, at a stretch. And once the elections were over and BJP came with a thumping majority, they were out of, sight and out of mind. So Chanda Kocher's husband, after that, Chinese Charlie Peng for 1,000 crore Hawala case. Income tax department again raiding Chinese entities in the money laundering case in India. Ramakant Sharma from Yes Bank. Ashok Gehlot's brother, and we know why, because there was a conflict in the Rajasthan government between Mr. Pilot and Mr. Gehlot, and thus parallelly the brothers, farmhouse was raided and everything happened. And then of course when they had a ceasefire and they shook hands, it went out of sight and out of mind. Yeah. Mr. Dr. Trehan from Medanta Hospital, Vijay Mallya, let's not even get there. Karnataka's Congress leader D.K. Siva Kumar, Robert Vadra, INX media case Chidambaram, Sharad Pawar, Rutul Puri. So all these names are so familiar. It almost sounds like a household name to anyone and everyone. We've been just, very vaguely as a layman following, news. But then not even a single prosecution being done till date only makes us realize that there are still a lot of loopholes in the act itself. It's just that we have collected certain, criminal procedural laws from, national and international level, but then we haven't come up with innovative ways to, knack these people down. My suggestion would definitely be that the financial institutions should be made party to it, because until and unless the banks are not providing funds to people, it is very, very difficult for a person to establish that money trail that the proceeds of crime. Maybe if we brings the bank into picture and they are more so forced down to be more vigilant before giving such humongous amount of loans to people just because I have a goodwill or I have been a corporate house for 2 decades, 3 decades, does not make me out of the radar that I might not commit a crime in the coming future. And that is exactly what has happened in the Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya case. I mean, Kingfisher became a household name, the liquor, the airlines, everything. But then if I get access to an amount as big as 7,000 crores, I cannot solely blame it to my bad business decisions, right?
Yes.
I mean, there has to be certain intention to, evade certain laws, evade certain duties as a corporate personnel and also an individual, and siphon off with a lot of, amount. And what happens is we do not realize, because we are a very big elastic economy. What happens is when a financial crime of this sort happens, it gets spread across 137 crores of people. So the loss comes down to as an individual, it comes down to way less a number. Say about, just divide 8,000 crores with 137 crores and you realize that, okay, thoda sa bardasht kar lenge, thoda sa ek nuksan ho gaya hai, we'll bear it and we move forward. We do not see that because of the corruption, because of the money laundering, because of this economic and financial jerk, we're not been able to, establish the infrastructure or the real estate or the cross-border relationship for a long period of time. Because it comes crumbling down जब इतने बड़े बड़े हमारे scams हो जाते हैं. और कोई भी scams आप देखेंगे तो वो छोटे मोटे scam नहीं होते, वो हजारों करोड़ के, it runs to the tune of thousands of crores. So it gives a very, very negative impact. और आप देखेंगे कि maximum cases में ऐसा हो रहा है कि इतना बड़ा amount किसी भी individual या corporate के लिए arrange करके रखा नहीं हुआ था in a platter.
Yeah.
The financial institutions were into picture.
Absolutely, ma'am.
And as far as, of course, now we need to pay, I mean, there are provisions, latest provisions, considering and focusing on the cross-border investments, but then angel investors, cross-border, investments, and bigger corporate houses trying to, take over or trying to hold power by investing into smaller, fishes. All these need to be, under a serious overhauling, which could lead to a more stringent law when it comes to prevention of money laundering.
So Prachi Sharma has a question related to this as well. Thank you for listing out the loopholes as such. But her question is that why hasn't the law bodies of the governments been dealing with these loopholes? If these loopholes have been apparent for so long, why have they had so much difficulty in dealing with them?
Because, darling, they don't have the intention to. Most of the policy
Fair enough.
makers, the legislatures, the person sitting in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha are the
benefiting from
ultimate
it.
beneficiary to it. And any government would, have more enemies, rather than supporters if they have stringent clause to it. I mean, we know anti-corruption campaign by Aam Aadmi Party. We also have all those blatant big lies, made by BJP saying that 15 lakhs of rupees would come into each individual's account because they're going to pick all the money, black money back and infuse
to
it
India,
in the
yeah.
economy. So it gives a very beautiful picture, but it also makes us realize how impractical it is. So these were just some jumlas to win the election, but if they actually work on it, who's going to support their, campaign?
Yeah.
Because all these, they are hands in gloves. Until and unless it is the individual, it has to be a movement, and we all know what individual or civil rights or non-violent civil movements can lead us to. अभी तक ये सारी बातें समझ में आता था कि बड़े बड़े घरानों के, बड़े बड़े बिजनेस हाउसेस के या बड़े बड़े नेता लोग ही करते थे. कभी भी ये समझा नहीं जाता था कि एक इंडिविजुअल का कभी इसमें कोई से हो सकता है. लेकिन अगर आप, इफ यू जस्ट सी राउंड द कॉर्नर नाउ, even a single individual can instigate and illuminate that, that fire inside, and which could lead to a mass movement. Until unless we don't have an unrest, the kind of unrest we had it for CA and NRC, if we do not have an unrest like that, because people should realize that it is your money that has been siphoned off by people like Malia or Modi, the government will never ever want to make those necessary changes, which you as a student and I as a practicing lawyer can figure out. I'm sure the policy makers are way ahead, and the think tanks too.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Keeping in line with countries' regimes with money laundering, what countries, according to you, would you say have a strict and an effective money laundering, a prevention of money laundering regime?
Okay, the dichotomy of this particular question, Samir, is the countries who claims to be the most stringent ones are the ones who are the centers of the money laundering.
Yeah.
That of course the topper is definitely US and UK, but then they have all these laws made for the rest of the countries. If you come down to all the anti-money laundering guidelines being set, there are OFCs who have have stricter laws against people investing in these smaller countries. They have stricter guidelines to how to contribute into some other countries' economic growth, because that is how they lure. They start up with the allurement of you're trying to infuse it in the economy, you're going to develop the country, and ultimately it becomes nothing but a trend to siphon off all the black money and get it in return all white and stashed and crisp and clean. So this flow through of money cannot be possible when the big top guns, China, Russia, UK, US coming into picture. It is simply impossible. On papers, I must say, the one country that I am very, and that is not leading to money laundering, I'm very impressed is Singapore, because at one point of time there was lot of corruption in that particular country, and they fought for it, and they have done pretty well from themselves. But apart from that, there are hardly countries who are successful in claiming per se that we have totally washed out money laundering from our country, and yes, we are clean, and each single penny is accounted, and each single penny is untainted, and it is it can be supported by a legit source of evidence stating that how this money came from its original source. So of course there are countries working on it. I mean, if you relatively see it, you can see it, you can see the change that yes, all those bunch of South African countries or African countries, or say Pakistan for that matter, yes, India is relatively doing better than Pakistan, but I don't know if this could please any listeners sitting here, because they are into
aim for relatively better.
It has to be absolute wiping out of the tainted money. And of course, that also brings me to a very, very important term, which I should have answered in the previous question, but now I think I can club the two of the questions. Like, technologically, we need to be super advanced. We know cyber warfare, we know these technological warfare. All of this is also leading to a lot of, crimes and money laundering, cases. And here, all the countries needs to join hands, especially G7 and all the countries, where they have to cumulatively come up with strict laws. They need to exchange information. They need to exchange dossier. They need to exchange list of, say, history offenders or willful defaulters, so that any country would have this, can raise their guard and stop people from investing in their own economy. Now imagine how far has UK been successful in helping India with Malia Modi and Lalit Modi. Why is it that Lalit Modi, Nirav Modi and Malia chose UK over the rest of the countries? There has to be a reason to it, and not very difficult to put two and two together. They are getting a safe hands there, back there. I mean, it takes an audacity for a person to state before the honorable court that I think it would not suit my health to be in an Indian Yerawada Pune jail, so I would want my process to be on within this country. I mean, imagine if there were better ties and better laws between the two countries, how easier it would have been. I'm not saying that every person involved in, money laundering should be treated as someone in Guantanamo jail or something like that. No, but then the least that could have happened is he should have been brought to the court having the jurisdiction to decide the matter.
Yeah, he should face the music in the country to bring him back.
Yeah, absolutely. How else would you think we would arrive to a conclusion of a case?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's all from my side, ma'am. I think we've overshot the hour, but I feel it was a very, very informative session from your end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking your time off to give us this webinar. I feel it was very informative. I can speak for the audience as well. I hope that you will join us for further webinars, because it has been a success every time.
Always been a pleasure. In fact, I was wondering if we could just split it into two, because another friend of mine who practices, under PMLA laws, Mr. Advocate Advait Satna from Mumbai, due to unavailability, could not join me because I wanted him to be there. I thought maybe it'll be more informative and interactive kind of a session when we, it takes two to tango, if to be honest. Maybe in future we can line up something with some topics suggested by our audience later today, or in the comments they can tell us what particular topics do they want us to cover. But my personal opinion to all of them would be that, at the end of the day, no matter 1 hour, 20 minutes spent straight in bashing how bad, PMLA proceedings in India is, it also makes the cases very interesting, and you must not stop yourself from getting into such cases or working under lawyers or with lawyers, or working on such cases, because it makes very interesting state of affairs. You have that clarity of thought, how a criminal procedure takes place with respect to economic offenses and financial crimes. When you actually be part of it, you have that broad prospect of understanding how the case has been put forward, what is the prosecution's reaction to it, what are the loopholes to it, how does it because at the end of the day your clients will be from the defense side and not the prosecution side. So it'll be a great deal of learning, you people. So do not stop yourself that, oh my god, it is such a high profile case, whether I would be able to understand, or why would I be part of this, why don't I start small. Don't do that. Be part of, start applying to certain law chambers where people, or such law firms who deals with money laundering matters, because in years to come with Ponzi schemes and cryptocurrencies and all of that, PMLA cases are only going to increase, despite of the fact whether the necessary changes suggested and discussed today or not happens or not. But PMLA is here to stay. and more so if you become part of it, especially those who are into litigation, or maybe certain think tanks and academics who can propose the government to make necessary changes. In both ways, get on to the act. It's very interesting in first go, and I'm sure there are many basic, reading materials available. We can only discuss to where it needs more improvisation, but then of course it's a very diversified act, and it'll be very interesting for you to practice in this particular field.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'd like to thank you once again from Lawyer's side. And if Alhambra could go back to the first slide with ma'am's details, yeah. So for anyone who has any further questions, please, or any queries, please reach out to ma'am on the email ID provided here. Closing information, if you as an audience haven't filled up the attendance sheet, please do so before this, before we end, so that you can be given your certificate. Once again, ma'am, as we sign off, thank you very much for taking your time off, and we hope to
thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.